ever heard of a dolly zoom? You've seen one. They look like this. They're trick shots, giving us the sensation of a sudden rush to the head. Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and many others would jump on the bandwagon, helping this become a ubiquitous special effect in everything from gross-out comedy to horror. But it all began with Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. In 1958, an effects cameraman at Paramount, Ermin Roberts, needed to make us dizzy, just like Jimmy Stewart's cop when he felt his fear of heights kicking in. Using models of the sets placed sideways and camera rails known as dolly tracks laid into them, Roberts toyed around with keeping one part of the shot in focus, zooming out while the camera tracked in. When he got it just right, the effect was one of elongating perspective, so that the bottom of the drop seems to fall away endlessly beneath us. In the decades to follow, this shot would become a new tool, high impact and multi-purpose. It has about 20 different names, sometimes called the Hitchcock zoom, or the vertigo effect, or the trombone effect.
What?
But dolly zoom sums up the two things it always has to do. You use the zoom lens to keep a fixed focus, say in Lord of the Rings or Road to Perdition here, while moving or dollying the camera in or out. Hitchcock was one of the first to copy his own trick. He used it again in Marnie to give a surreal air of instability to the heroine's childhood trauma. The French New Wave were hot on Hitchcock's heels. Look how it's used in Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samurai. Here it's unearthly, alienating for the viewer. It has the effect of deepening Alain Delon's intense solitude. Naturally, it wasn't long before America's new movie brats got in on the act. Steven Spielberg tinkered around with it in his cinema debut, The Sugarland Express, smoothly merging into a sniper's field of view. But it was Jaws which immortalised the dolly zoom anew, with perhaps the punchiest example ever achieved. Vertigo's was a point-of-view shot. This answers with a reverse point of view back at Chief Brody, as he sees the shark attack and finds the fabric of his reality pulled away. The shot says, this is what you were dreading, it's happening, and it's hideous. After this, it was open season on dolly zooms. In the Spielberg-produced Poltergeist, the effect turns an upstairs hallway into a bottomless pit. In Brian De Palma's Scarface, it seems to gawp at Tony Montana's newly acquired status symbols. There's the Cadillac, but also Michelle Pfeiffer, not coincidentally snorting cocaine in the passenger seat. Mathieu Kassovitz would rock out with an impressively extreme example in the similarly coked up La Haine. Unlike Chief Brody, these hoodlums seem in charge of what's going on, as if staking a claim to the whole of Paris behind them. By now, it was a go-to effect when you needed some kind of shock horror realization to dawn on a character. It was a much copied device, and some copies were more blatant than others. Look how Rian Johnson's Brick dolly zooms into the hilly landscape of a California suburb, and gives us a visual hat tip to Spielberg's E.T. And then look at these two moments. It was starting to become a stock technique, a flashy signature of directorial verve, fit to be used for any moment where the penny chillingly drops. Already, one filmmaker had exploited it to the extent of campy overkill. Sam Raimi's cartoonish western The Quick and the Dead is almost nothing but dolly zooms, throwing in wacky Dutch angles too. Raimi tips the aesthetic right over into spoof. And thus, the dolly zoom became kind of a joke. Lo and behold, you see its mock horror stylings start to pop up with winking effect in comedy. Amid all this horsing around though, has the majesty of the shot been lost?
Sorry, we're closed!
It's been a while since Martin Scorsese has done the full dolly zoom, but he mastered it beautifully twice. In Raging Bull, when Jake LaMotta is fighting Sugar Ray Robinson at the end, there's a lull in the editing, and here it comes. Ropes, spectators, and sound fall away into blackness. It's a last moment of reprieve, before the final barrage of blows that will capsize LaMotta's career. And then, even more famously, there's the long, slow diner shot in Goodfellas. Trust is dead between these two, and this is the scene that shows it.
On the surface, of course, everything was supposed to be fine. We were supposed to be the...
Although we're hearing Ray Liotta's voiceover, the two-shot doesn't quite plant us in Henry's headspace. It's more universal. It makes us uneasy. We can't help peering outside, where objects keep encroaching, even while the two men only look at each other. They're like trapped rats in a glass cage. Scorsese used the old trick languidly, expressively, to make it his own. If he hasn't gone back to it since, that's probably because it became everyone else's favourite way to show off. But perhaps the dolly zoom has gone through its self-parodic phase and out the other side to find fresh functions in yet more genres. Could it be due a graceful comeback? A shot at redemption? I doubt we've reached the bottom of it yet.
Happy trails.